Hello, welcome. This video is about creating GUIs in Java. And particularly what we're going to do is we're going to use a technology or a program called Scene Builder. Now what's great about Scene Builder is that it actually creates what's called an fXML document for us. And that document tells the system where to put all the elements in the view. So what we're going to do today is we're going to set up a view, right? We're gonna put some simple elements onto a screen. We're gonna add some functionality to what's called a controller class. Now the idea is in this model that you have a view, and it is this is really just placing objects into a particular area inside of either a pane or a particular coordinate, something like that. And the controller actually is where I'll call it the intelligence, or where the logic goes on how this view should interact. So, people can fill in these text fields, but when they hit the create vehicle button, what should happen? Well, all that control is handled in the controller. And this controller also has a neat feature where it can take information from the view and it can pass it on to a model. So for example, if we had a class, in this case, it looks like some car information. So maybe we have a class for car and we want to store information about cars. So we would make a model to store that. And the controller could create instances of these models and allow us to store it. The other thing you can do is with your models, you can create a series of automated tests. That would be in a separate video. So what we're going to do today is really focusing on basically the view and the controller. And this will be the first video in a series of videos handling these setups. So let's get started. So I'm going to go here into NetBeans, and I'm going to create a new project. And historically, we've always done Java, and then you pick a Java application. What we're going to do here is I'm going to pick a Javafx fXML application. Now this gives us that whole MVC model that the view and a controller does it automatically for us. So we're going to call this the GUI demo, right? So GUI, graphical user interface demo. Hit finish. And when we do this, we get several things. We get 3 files created for us. The first one here is called a controller. So again, in our diagram here, this is the controller. So this is the item that will control the view, and it handles the information exchange back and forth to the view. The next document it created for us is the actual view. Now, I zoom in here so you can see it. What you can see is it's actually an XML document. That's all it is. So in here are objects, so a button and a label. If you're good at reading XML, you can see that the button's going to be in position X coordinate 126 and Y coordinates 90, and it's going to say click me on it. But you don't actually have to learn how to read XML very well to work with GUIs, because there's a great tool called Scene Builder. And if I double click on this file, because I've already installed Scene Builder, it's going to launch, and here's what our window actually looks like. There's the button, it says click me, and there's actually a label in here too. If I right underneath it, there's a little label. So this doesn't do very much right now, but that's fine. We can set it up to actually do something interesting. So let's just we'll get rid of these items altogether out of our view. And basically, if you've never used Scene Builder, what you have is on the left-hand side is all of the items that you can drag onto your scene. And in Java, that's what they call this. Although historically we would call it maybe a window. What the thought process now is they call it a stage. Again, think of like a Broadway production. Actors are on a stage. So there's a stage, and then each specific window that you're seeing is a different scene on a stage. So this is called a scene, hence the name of the program, Scene Builder, because we're building a scene. Now if I want to drag things in, I can just take them from the left-hand side. You can see there's many different configuration objects, and in here, into the control section, you can see buttons and checkboxes and all kinds of great things. On the right hand side, we have all of our control elements. So let's pick this anchor pane here. I'm going to select that. If I want to make this a little bit bigger, maybe we'll go 800 pixels by, let's go down here to 600 pixels. So now I got a little bit bigger screen to work with. And yeah, we'll just keep drawing it. We'll pull some stuff on here. So first things first, what we're going to do is I'm going to create like a simple little utility that allow us to click some checkboxes, and it's going to just have some pizza toppings. So let's put, we can just drag elements in and try to line them up as best we can, but I'll show you better ways to line them up. Pepperoni, pineapple, and bacon. Okay. Pineapple. You can tell I'm a programmer, right? So put an uppercase in pineapple. Okay. So we have that, and then I'm going to drag in something called a label. And the idea of a label is it's just static text. People can't interact with it. It just shows information. So here I'm going to say this is our checkbox objects. And to make this stand out a little bit, I'm going to go up here to properties on the right. And then I'm going to drag this down, and let's make this both bold and italic. And then let's change the size to 18. There we go. That stands out a bit more. And even right now, I can actually go to my preview here and say show preview, and I can select these checkboxes, but it doesn't really do anything. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add in a button, and I'm going to say order pizza. So when I push the order pizza button, what I'm going to get it to do is read which of these checkboxes are selected, and it's going to print out my order below. So to do that, I'll drag in another label. Now, the challenge here is, you see how, this is fairly lined up, but if I wanted to move any one of, let's say I wanted to move all of these kind of more to the upper left corner, it's actually really hard, because I'd have to move them, oops, I have to select each item and move them, and then I'm going to have to try to line them up again. And although there's some, helper utilities for that, you can see this little red line helps, it's really hard to get the spacing and everything perfect down to a pixel. So there's actually better ways of handling it than trying to manipulate these items, because when you start getting a lot of objects on the screen, it gets really hard to handle them. So I'm lining all these up vertically. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go into my containers section here, and you can see everything that we're on right now is called an anchor pane. And much like how a boat might sail into a bay, drop anchor, and that's where the boat stays, that's what this pane is. Wherever I drag an object and I let go, that's where it stays. It's anchored to that spot. But let's get a little bit of help here. I'm going to use this thing called a V-box, or vertical box. And I'll just make it big enough for our objects here. Drag it along. And then what I can do is I can put items inside this V-box, and it will stack them on top of each other. So for example, I have our label here. I'm just going to drag this. I'm in the hierarchy on the left. I'm going to drag that down. And you see how now it's showing it inside the V-box? And then I can bring down my pepperoni, my pineapple, bacon, my button, and then this little label for the order. And you're probably saying, that's pretty ugly. Everything's jammed together, and your pineapple's too high. Well, you can just drag these around inside of here, so we get these in the right order. And then really why this looks a little bit off is there's no spacing, right? All the objects are right tight together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select my V-box, and on the right hand side, so again, everything on the left you're dragging onto the screen, everything on the right you're configuring it. So I'll go down here to my layout, and in here there's something called spacing, and I'm just going to put 10 pixels between each of these items. And now they actually look fine, right? Everything's lined up, everything's nice and easy to read. If I want to make this label a little bit bigger, I can do that, and then it puts my label in the center, but I really want it at the top. So I'm just going to go to Properties, and in here I have something called Alignment, so I'm going to say top left. Perfect. Now I'm going to hit Save. Now it's very important that you hit Save because SceneBuilder is actually a different program from NetBeans or Eclipse or IntelliJ. So when you build something in SceneBuilder, you have to hit Save, otherwise the other programs will not know the changes you've made. So I'll go into NetBeans here, and in fact, if we look at this FXML document now, you can see all the things that we've added have been put in, right? So there's our pineapple, pepperoni, and bacon. Here's the button for ordering the pizza. It's all here. Zoom in a little bit, get rid of some of this extra stuff. Okay, so now to our controller. So what we just did is we basically just drag and dropped the objects onto the screen that we wanted. That's all we did. Now we need to control those objects. So I'm going to go into the controller class. Okay, and you're used to seeing instance variables that look like this, right? They say private, and then they have a data type, and then they have the instance variable name. Well, here, the only difference is we're also adding in this @fxml tag. And what this does is it allows the system, we're basically saying, look, this particular instance variable is going to be covered in the XML document. So so we need to update this, you need to add this in order for the controller to talk to that view object. Excuse me. Okay, so let's call this the pizza order label. And I like to put right in the name what type of object it is, because sometimes you get a lot of objects that have similar names. And you'll see by default you get this method called initialize. Okay, so if we hit save, at this point in time we actually should be able to run our program. Let's see. Yeah, so at this point we can actually run our GUI. It says label here though. I don't want to say label, and when I push the button nothing happens. So let's go down here and update that label. I'm going to say pizza order label, and I can set the text to be the empty string. So we won't see that label. We could also make it invisible, but this is fine. So let's go. I've made some changes to our controller. I've hit save. I'm going to go back over now into SceneBuilder, and when I click on this label, right, because I gave it a name, if I go down to code, I can see under this there's an identity. I can give it an identity, and so I make it pizza order label. So now when my controller is talking to the view, it knows what goes in this label is whatever command we're giving it here. And again, I have to hit save, otherwise NetBeans won't see it. So now if I go back and I actually hit play, launches, and now you see the label object is still here, but you can't see it, right? So now what we have to do is we have to hook up this button. So when these things are selected, if I hit order pizza, it should say your pizza toppings are pineapple, pepperoni, and bacon. So to do that, I need to gain access to those checkboxes. So I'm going to say @fxml private checkbox, and pepperoni, pineapple, bacon. And then when you're importing, always make sure that it's Javafx classes that you're importing, not AWT or Swing. They will not work with Javafx. Hit save. And now we need to create our method. So we'll say public pizza order button pushed. And then inside of here, forgot our return type. Not return anything. So inside of here, what we're going to do is we're going to check on our checkboxes to see if they've been selected or not. So all we have to do for that is we say, well, if, actually first we'll need a string order equals so we can say if the pineapple checkbox, right? If it is selected, that means the person wanted it, so we can update our order and we can say, put in a new line and we'll say pineapple. And then we can do the same thing for pepperoni and bacon. So say if pepperoni checkbox is selected, add pepperoni to our string. And if bacon is selected, add bacon to our string here. And then all we have to do is, we have a label already. What did I call it? Pizza order label. And I'm going to say set the text for that equal to this string that we've been creating called order. Okay, so now we have a method. Hit save here. So we have a method. When the pizza order button is pushed, we'll create a string, and then we're going to add in, every time a checkbox is selected, we'll add in the appropriate topping. So now all we have to do is we have to tell the Scene Builder, the actual XML document, that we now have these elements added. So let's go back into Scene Builder here. I'm going to click on pineapple, and here under ID I'm going to say, well, that's the pineapple checkbox. So I'm under code here, okay, pineapple checkbox. And then pepperoni. You can see it's great. It won't allow you to assign the same ID to two different things. So as soon as you've assigned it, it takes it out of the available list. And we'll go down here. There's bacon. And then the last thing is we made a method for this button. And I don't actually need to give the button an ID because I'm not manipulating or changing things with the button. But when there's an action, right? When there's an action for that button, I can just say the button was pushed, right? So whenever this button is pushed, call the method. And I'll go back here, I hit save, go into NetBeans, and I hit the play button here. Hopefully everything works well. Okay, there's pineapple, pepperoni, bacon. I ordered my pizza, and it says the toppings are pineapple, pepperoni, and bacon. If I get rid of pepperoni, it gets rid of pepperoni. Get rid of bacon, gets rid of that. Alright, looks like it works great. Our spacing and layout looks fine. So there you have it. We created a GUI. If we go back to we laid out a simple model that created an XML document, right? So there's not a lot of intelligence per se in the XML document. Here it is here. Zoom back. Right? So there's our checkboxes, and on action, we can see that we push the button. That's all that's happening when we do when we set up our controller, and when we run the program, we've hooked up our controller to implement or to work with the view. So the very last thing that we haven't really covered yet is how in the world do we get this thing to run? Well, by default, when you set it up using the fxml application, is it creates this start method for you. So what it says is we gave the name of our class as GUI demo, and it says that extends an application. And what that means is there's a custom class called application, and we're creating a specialized version of that class. And there's an abstract method in application called start, and it passes in a stage, which is basically our main window that we're creating. And then inside of here, what it does is it's calling something called an fxml loader to load that fxml document for us. And then it uses that document to create a scene, and then the stage or the window, they set the scene to be whatever we created. And then the way that that's triggered is just like any other program. Starts in a main method, It calls this method launch, which is inside of application. And at a certain point inside of application class, it calls the start method, and we're off to the races. So there you have it. We've got ourselves a great little, and there'll be several other additions to this video which will show other objects as we go along. Thanks very much.